Good evening, workers of Guyana. This evening, I want to take some time as we are on the heels of celebrating Labor Day 2024. Indeed, the PPP civic government has always been driven from a working class philosophy, building a country and a society in which development is just and equitable, ensuring that our workers have a better quality of life. It is important for us to understand what constitutes a better quality of life. A better quality of life cannot only be measured by wages. A better quality of life depends on the holistic development of oneself, family, and community. It depends on the quality of health care, the quality of education, the quality of social services, including water, the level of infrastructure, and the holistic standard of living that one is able to achieve in a society and a community. It is these principles that drove the creation of a manifesto in 2020 by the PPP that was crafted in consultation with every stakeholder of the Guyanese community. That manifesto sought to directly influence and impact the welfare and well-being of all Guyanese, especially our workers. I am therefore pleased at the progress we have made in almost fulfilling completely, in less than 4 years, all the commitments we would have made in the manifesto to workers and to the population. It is also important for us to understand the foundation from which we came, and I'm just going to examine the last 3 to 4 years so we can have an appreciation as to the changes and the magnitude of improvement in the welfare and well-being of the working class of our country. In 2020, when the PPP civic government assumed office, we inherited a broken economy where all the major sectors reported significant declines in output. Between 2015 and 2019, the decline in output in the sugar industry was approximately $21 billion. The forestry and bauxite sectors reported losses in output equivalent to $31 billion and $9 billion respectively during the corresponding period. Forestry, losses of $31 billion, and bauxite, losses of $31 billion, and forestry losses of $9 billion. In the forestry sector, when we came in, the Forestry Commission was virtually closed. Employees were not paid for months and there was no money in the bank account. The total loss in output for these three sectors amounted to $61.5 billion, or 8% of GDP in 2019. That is what we inherited. Between sugar, bauxite, and forestry, losses in output of $61.5 billion, or 8% of GDP in 2019 at 2012 prices. In terms of export revenue, the decline in the sectors contributed to approximately more than $283 million in losses. This, of course, saw more than 60% of the mining industry closed, production stopped. More than 30,000 persons, directly and indirectly, lost their jobs. More than 25,000 persons, directly and indirectly, in the forestry sector, lost their jobs. More than 7,000 families directly in the sugar industry were sent to the breadline. That is what we inherited in 2020. Today, through great policies, we have been able to deploy back investment in the mining sector. We have full participation once again in the mining sector. The forestry sector is again able to pay its bills, returning those jobs that were lost. And in sugar, we have been continuously investing and returning the jobs and taking those families off of the breadline. Bauxite, in those years, lost thousands of jobs. Today, we have been able to return more than 1,000 jobs to the bauxite industry, and this is expected to grow rapidly before the close of this year. So because of the rapid decline in these key sectors, more than 50,000 persons were without a job during 2019, according to the Bureau of Statistics. Despite widespread unemployment and declining income, the previous government introduced over 200 taxes that saw tax revenue increase from 136 billion to 226 billion. Indeed, their method of economic growth was taxation, 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 wasteful spending, and policies that crippled the productive sector. The higher tax burden also translated into decline in private consumption. And this is important. During those years, consumption declined. That is the ability of the citizens to participate in the economy, to buy, to consume supplies from the economy. If you can't buy and consume what is in the economy, then there is a problem. Retail suffers. So as a result, what happened? We saw private consumption reduce from 82.7% of GDP in 2014 to 53% of GDP in 2019. Unable to service their loans during 2014 and 2019, non-performing loans for the households and businesses increased twofold. This was the plight of the working class. They could not have afforded to repay their loans. This is what we inherited. Non-performing loans, that is, people's inability to repay their loans, grew twofold by 2019. Importantly, the households, at a household level, at a family level, that is where there was a huge hit in 2019. When you compare 2019 and 2018, non-performing loans increased by 1.9 billion or 22%, from 1.9 billion in 2018 by 22%. By 22%. By the time we got into government, the size of the non-performing loan portfolio was $10.6 billion at a household level. These were families who could no longer repay their loans. To summarize this, the economy was on decline. Unemployment was widespread. Our citizens were punished with more than 200 new taxes and found it difficult to pay their loans to the commercial bank. Apart from inheriting this broken economy in 2020, my government assumed office at a time when the entire world was faced with a pandemic. The entire world was faced with a pandemic when we assumed office. The economy was further impacted by the election impasse. So, when we came into office, we had the pandemic. We had to divert resources to fight the pandemic for 2 years with no infrastructure. In less than a month, operationalizing a hospital, getting vaccines, protecting the citizens, protecting our healthcare workers. We've had to do so whilst at the same time we were faced with a staggering bank overdraft at $114 billion at the end of 2019. So that is the bill they left us with, an overdraft in the banking sector of $114 billion. Since assuming office, my government has had the unenviable task of resuscitating the economy while navigating multiple crises, including the COVID-19 pandemic, the global supply chain crisis, the global food crisis, and the global energy crisis. Given the state of our economy under the previous government, the PPP civil government committed in its manifesto to rescuing the productive sector, creating 50,000 jobs, removing the punitive tax imposed on our citizens, investing in health, education, housing, and water sector, and expanding the physical infrastructure across the country. These promises were directly related to benefiting and improving the life of the working class. So upon assuming office, the government immediately launched the 25,000 cash grant to household, depositing more than $7.5 billion in the pockets of people. Additionally, we announced a number of measures that were agreed with the local banks to ease the burdens of citizens and businesses with outstanding loan during the pandemic. These included the lowering of interest rate and an extension of the moratorium of loan payment. This relief amounted to $28 billion. Addressing directly the issue of non-performing loans, addressing the welfare of the working class. In our first budget in 2020, my government reversed the punitive taxes that the previous government introduced. By fulfilling this manifesto promises, taxpayers save tens of billions of dollars in taxes. Tens of billions of dollars of taxes was returned in the pockets of the people, the working class people of this country. Keeping faithful to its manifesto promise, the government implemented numerous initiatives to rescue the productive sector. Today, all the key sectors are not only reporting higher output levels, but have created countless jobs. If you look at the investment in housing, jobs that the government would have created directly is in excess of 65,000 jobs. When you add the jobs that has been created from government expenditure and investment in the productive sector and the private sector, safely, in the last 3.5 years, we have been able to create more than 65,000 jobs across the country. This is in excess of the 50,000 new jobs we would have promised in the manifesto. We've also fulfilled our promise to rehire the 2,000 CSOs and the sugar workers who were fired by the previous government. We restored the joint services bonus. Since its introduction, it has cost the government more than $4.7 billion. Apart from increasing wages in the public sector, we've implemented numerous initiatives that could have indirectly preserved the real wages of these workers. Some of these initiatives includes, and especially for the public servants who would have benefited, is an adjustment to the excise tax on fuel to absorb the impact of the volatile fuel prices. This has cost us $40 billion. $40 billion that would have been translated to impact the lives of ordinary people in increasing transportation costs, increasing fuel, increasing cooking gas. $40 billion we have absorbed by taking the excise tax to zero on fuel. We rolled back as a result of COVID. We forgot that the cost of import of containers grew by 1,000% in some cases, 1,500% in some cases. What we did, we rolled back freight charges to pre-pandemic levels. That is, this measure. So taxes were calculated on freight charges at pre-pandemic level. What this resulted to is a saving of $6 billion. It cost the government $6 billion. That is $6 billion we avoided from being translated to the families and the working class people. Outside of this, other cost of living measures to increase production while containing the impact of price increases. Containing price increases would have cost us $7 billion last year alone. To date, when you add the total value of the measures we implemented to contain price increases, that's $25.2 billion the government would have spent to ensure that these price increases did not impact the ordinary man. To ensure that the working class can have improved accessibility and affordability to housing, the government successfully negotiated low interest rate on mortgages for homeowners. Additionally, the government restored the ceiling on the mortgage interest relief for housing to $30 million. We not only restored the mortgage interest relief, but we increased it to $30 million. This initiative has cost the government more than $2.4 billion up to the end of 2023. $2.4 billion we have given back directly to the working people, to the working class of this country. Our interventions to improve the well-being of public servants were not limited to wages and salaries. Other initiatives implemented by the government, including scholarships for our citizens, including public servants under the Gold Scholarship Program, close to 30,000 scholarships issued, 75% of which went to women. Our promise of ensuring equitable distribution and equal access to the highest form of education, university education, to improve the working class condition of public servants. In the healthcare and education sector, the government has invested billions. This year alone, we plan to invest $135.2 billion in the education sector and $130 billion in the health sector. This is to ensure that we give our working class people access to the best education, the best health care. You have hired more than 6,000 new teachers. These are the real stories and real investments that we make continuously to uplift the lives of the working class people of our country. Apart from better working conditions, the investment will improve the quality of life for citizens. The increases in old age pension, the return of the Because We Care grant, all of these add to quality of life. Over 30,000 house lots were allocated, most of which went to the working class people. Apart from the across-the-board increase in salary, it is important to note the government also adjusted the salaries and allowances of various categories of public servants since it assumed office in 2020. And we can go through, I've done this before, whether it's teachers, whether it's the return of decency in the bauxite sector, the improvement in the productive sector, the 4,500 teachers who are given education allowances, costing us more than $500 million, the additional duty-free concessions granted to teachers, the adjustment we made in teachers' salaries amounting to $1.9 billion. And all of these increases too will also impact the gratuity and pensions of these teachers upon retirement. By the end of 2025, we'll also have more than 5,500 new teachers fully trained, and they will benefit from additional allowances. The task ahead of us is to continue on this trajectory, to ensure that our workers and every Guyanese enjoy a prosperous future. Ensure that they live in prosperity. Ensure that their lives and their family lives is transformed as our societies and our communities are transformed with treated water, better roads, better health care, better education, easier access to services, increase because we care grant to your children, increase old age pension, increase public assistance. All of these things add to ensure a higher standard and quality of living for the working class. For when your parents who are pensioners get increased pension, and your children who are going to school get an increase because we care grant, a school uniform grant, a family member that might have a disability goes on the permanent register for disability people for disability, and they get a monthly allowance. When a relative who needs dialysis gets an annual check from the government to support their dialysis treatment, all of this remove burden. All of this remove burden from the family, reduces the impact on your household income, make more disposable income available to you. And we're going to continue. Much prosperous days are ahead of us. We have to manage this period going up to 2027, 2030 carefully. And I can assure you that we will have one of the most upskilled, qualified workforce population in this region. That workforce and that population will see matching benefits, matching salaries, higher quality of life, better standard of living, higher and better access to healthcare services, education services. So to our workers out there, I want to congratulate you and thank you for all the hard work that you put in every single day to make our country better, to make our communities better, to make our society better. All the hard work and sacrifice you make in uplifting your families and uplifting our country. Together we're going to work to ensure that your future, your children's future, and your family life is one of prosperity. We will and we must together. On this, as we approach Labor Day 2024, let us do so unified in our voices. Let us do so together, celebrating one Guyana, uplifting each other, and assuring ourselves that the most prosperous days are still ahead of us. Let us rally together as we go past 2027, when the revenue stream will increase, when our economy will be diversified, and when all of us, when together as a people, we will see further prosperity and benefit from further prosperity. My government stays committed in its quest through targeted intervention to help the vulnerable, the poor, the oppressed, the working class, whilst at the same time stimulating the economy and building policies that will grow the private sector, expand job creation, open up new opportunity, and enhance the welfare and well-being of all Guyanese. Happy Labor Day 2024, and God bless all of you and your families. Thank you.